just as we came to air, I saw the New York Times article on Kamala Harris. It was retweeted tweeted by Dan Turrentine, our pal of Democrat fame. And he said, I've long been saying she is going to run again. And it's an in-depth profile of Kamala Harris by the New York Times. The question, I love, this is classic Kamala. They asked her, should the party veer left and get more progressive, like we saw with somebody like Mamdani, who's not even progressive, he's communist, or should it veer to the center, like like Abigail Spamberger, who's their idea of center, even though she wants boys playing in girls' sports, the new governor of Virginia, elect. And her answer, Kamala Harris's answer is, okay, so should we veer left or stay center? We have to stand for the people. I know that sounds corny. That's her answer, Stu. She's still just as inane as ever. And it's so funny to me because she knows there's something wrong with her answer, right? She knows it's off and it will satisfy and be meaningful to no one. So she kind of punctuates it with like a disclaimer. It's corny. My belief is, no, it has nothing to do with corny. Like corny is a weird dad joke, right? That's what corny is. This is just empty. It's utterly meaningless. It says absolutely nothing, which I will grant you is her signature. I mean, in and of itself, it's kind of specially hers. But what should the party do at this time of crisis for them when they're not sure whether to go radical or go centrist? And her answer is, quote, we have to stand for the people.
It's so good.
She hasn't improved. That's our takeaway.
Yes, she is still the vapid zilch that we knew she was as she was running for president. And it is, she's kind of the reverse of Crockett in a way. Like Crockett, just every thought that comes into her head just comes blurting out. Like she was ranting about how maybe the solution to all of our problems is that we don't tax black people anymore. That's a legitimate policy proposal from a woman running for Senate in Texas. Okay, yeah, we should do racially based taxes. That's certainly constitutional. But beyond that, then you have Kamala, who is most of the time trying to do the opposite, right? Like trying to basically survive the moment because she's not quick enough on her feet to come up with a real answer. She doesn't seem to really have thought about basic things, about her campaign and her positions. Probably most famously, you'll remember.
Like the future of her party? That seems like something you'd spend a few minutes on. Yeah. Maybe she's out on this nationwide book tour. Did that ever come up such that you can give a better answer than we have to stand for the people? Can you imagine J.D. Vance across from her if they actually wind up being the nominees?
That'll be so good. Probably the most concerning thing is maybe she did put a lot of time into thinking and coming up with that answer, which is maybe the worst thing. But if you remember back in the campaign, there was that moment where she went on, I think it was The View. Yeah, it was The View. I remember watching it, sitting in the studio, looking up at the TV with absolute amazement as she couldn't come up with one thing that she disagreed with that they had done during the entire term. No disagreement with Joe Biden on any policy, couldn't come up with anything. And it was at that moment, honestly, that I thought she was toast. I thought it was over in that moment. It was the biggest gift you could have possibly given to Donald Trump, who benefits from the dumbest enemies possible over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But that is her way, right? It's almost like a survival instinct. She thinks if she can kind of get through the moment and get off camera, everything will be fine. But maybe that works once or twice. We see that from spokespeople from time to time, PR people that will avoid an issue, and that can be a successful tactic in the short term.
Or even CEOs.
Yeah.
CEOs of like random companies sometimes do that, but not CEOs of the United States of America. Like you cannot become a president with that. Like just don't let anything stick to me. Eventually you have to answer real questions. So here's a little bit more from it. By the way, the New York Times points out that she's been calling all these Democrats who won their elections, like Mamdani, like Spanberger, and others who won in the most recent November election. They said, quote, the exact kind of thing a person planning to run for president might do. The Times is clearly dangling this as the closest she's gotten to telegraphing she's going to run in 2028. And here's another little piece for you to mull on. Her place in history is already secure, and she knows it, writes the Times. Quote, quoting her, I understand the focus on 28 and all that. but there will be a marble bust of me in Congress. I am a historic figure, like any vice president of the United States ever was. That's her saying, try to understand, I'm already historic, New York Times reporters, no matter what I do in 2028. So get it straight. Historic, right here. Herstory. That's what you're looking at right now.
Oh, it's so good. I will say, in a sense, I agree. She is historic in the sense that her political career is history. That is actually true. I would agree with her on that framing of it. But it's
such an interesting combination of like nothing but banal thoughts combined with narcissism. Like, is that a common combination? The Jasmine Crockett combo makes more sense to me, where you're loud, you're brash, you call attention to yourself with your words, you at least try to say things that you think are going to get attention, and then you're narcissistic. But like Kamala Harris, who like literally has never said anything smart or interesting, to be like, I'm historic, hello. Or maybe it's not narcissism, maybe it's deep insecurity manifesting in a demand that she be recognized for this fake, thing that we're supposed to be impressed by, which is her bust in the U.S. Congress. We're not. We're not. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I'd like you to stop talking about Kamala Harris's bust. I don't think that's appropriate, and I don't like it at all. But I think it is.
Don't like the way I feel.
It is interesting, and I think I don't. Again, I'm trying. This is me trying to do analysis of this person in their brain, but it strikes me as like she might be honest enough in quiet moments with herself to realize the only thing she's ever really achieved is a job / skin color / genital combination. Like she might just be really aware of that. And when she's talking about her opinions, there's nothing there. That's not why she got where she did. The way she got where she did. And again, I don't want to go back to Kamala Harris's bust here. Some of that relates to her early career. But as we've moved on through life, she has graduated, I guess, to a person who legitimately, I mean this as an actual compliment, in a way, she's legitimately good in those behind the scenes moments when she's trying to, she did this in California. She did this when Biden decided to step down, to really like pressure people and get them in line with her political aspirations, donors, big wigs. She does a good job with that. And it's really the only thing she does a good job with. So really she can't talk about that publicly because that's not a skill that people appreciate. So the skill that they appreciate, I guess, is, hey, glass ceiling. Hey, first black this, first black that, first Indian this, like all the things that she comes up with on our identity. And she thinks that's going to win over at least Democrats. I don't think there's any desire. I don't think there's any hunger, even on the Democratic side, to see her back doing this again. I think they feel a little icky after that whole experience, and they want to move on with their lives. I would too. But I don't think there's a future here for her. Do you?
Stop crapping on her chances, Stu Burguiere. That's all I know. Let's encourage it. She can do it.
She's
That's
great.
your racism and your sexism showing, sir, obviously.
Ever read the label on a typical bag of chips? It's often a science experiment of seed oils, MSG, artificial dyes, and mystery ingredients. Masa is part of the growing movement to bring back real food. Masa chips contain just 3 ingredients: organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. Not only do these chips avoid the bad stuff, they also taste delicious too. Snacking on Masa chips is nothing like eating regular chips. With Masa, you feel satisfied, light, and energetic with no crash and no bloat. And if you love Masa, then you will love Vandy Crisps. Vandy, which is Masa's sister company, makes the most delicious 3-ingredient potato chips too. Ready to give Masa or Vandy a try? Use code MK for 25% off your first order at masachips.com or vandycrisps.com, or simply click the link in the video description or scan the QR code to claim this delicious offer. Don't feel like ordering online? Masa and Vandy are now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. Stop by and pick a couple of bags up before they're all gone.
Here's what she wants you to know, okay? Ye of little faith. This is what the Times writes. After years of being hailed as the future, quote, the female Barack Obama label came as early as 2009. What a joke. When she was still just a DA. Ms. Harris is suddenly at risk of her time having passed. Yet people aren't just showing up for her. They're paying to see her, writes the Times. Then they quote her. Thousands of people are coming to hear my voice. Thousands and thousands, she says. Every place we've gone has been sold out. Now, first of all, who talks about themselves like that? Like, I just finished a nationwide tour. Thousands came to hear my voice. Like, nobody talks about themselves like that, you know? And I actually asked my team to take a look at like the average size of the venues that she goes to. 700, maybe like 1,200, 1,500. I'm sorry, but you should be able to fill that like just by saying you're going to swing by for 2 minutes as a former vice president. The fact that she's super proud, she's filling theaters that seat 700 is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I mean, not for nothing, but out on our tour, we were filling 6,000, 8,000. Our last venue was close to 12,000. I'm not a vice president, and I'm certainly not the person who was just nominated as the, a party nominee who just ran for president. This is why she thinks she's relevant, and she's got to brag about it, right? Thousands and thousands to hear my voice. And the Times goes along with it, and they're paying to see her. This is a book promo tour, and there are almost always young Black women filling these audiences because to them, she's a hero, right? She's like, as she will quickly remind you, the first this, the first that, and represents a certain brand of identity politics that's super popular within the Democrat Party, and in particular, the Black female wing of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating that she'd be excited about that, right? If she could have filled 10,000, 12,000 seat arenas like you did on your tour, I mean, I saw it in person, I saw it in footage in all cities across America. If she could have done the same, Megyn, I assure you she would have, right? Like, this is not, they weren't like, we want to limit these sales. And what's fascinating is...
And by the way, you had to pay to get into my events too.
Yeah.
They weren't free. So it's like, hello.
Exactly. It was, people wanted to come to them. It wasn't, a responsibility to say, oh gosh, I just want to be a partner in history or whatever. But I mean, step back for a second here. This is a person who ran for president, won a vice president presidency term in the vice president office, and also just received, not that long ago, tens of millions of votes to be president of the United States against a person that everyone in her party absolutely despises and calls Hitler on a day-to-day basis. You'd think it'd be easy to fill a 10,000 seat arena in every city in America. I mean, she got a lot of votes. But those votes were out of sort of a default, right? People who just didn't like Donald Trump and were looking for any other option. There was never a moment of passion for Kamala Harris. I would argue even within the Biden administration. I mean, they spent a lot of their time trying to convince reporters behind the scenes how much she sucked at the job. So, I mean, I'm sure maybe her family likes her. I'm sure there's a few stragglers where you can fill small arenas or small, not even arena. Small, I don't know, venues, restaurants. I don't know what's a 700 seat
restaurants,
venue. Right? I'm sure that you can do that, but it is
diners.
Yeah, diners, drive-ins, and dives. You can do all those, but like, there's not much more beyond that. And even the people who cast the vote were doing it with a kind of, shrugging their shoulders and "please stop Donald Trump" attached to it, and that doesn't create a movement. Again, like you talk about the vapid speech. This is someone who's trying to be a leader, who's supposed to be a leader of the nation. You're supposed to have takes on major issues. That's supposed to be part of the reason why people want to come to you, and she just has none of it.
I keep having to look down to remember what she said about her stance on where the party should go because it's so inane. My mind is not capable of holding on to it. We have to stand for the people. I know that sounds corny. Stand for the people. Okay. By the way, that was like her campaign slogan. Remember? Because she had been a DA. They, Kamala Harris for the people, that they used that many times in her campaign. So it's not even like something she came up with. It's not something that's near and dear to her heart. It's something that she's parlaying off of. That some campaign operative who got paid some of those $1 billion drafted for her. And now she thinks it's like a profundity, like she always does with things that she says. and she wants to push it on us in the New York Times. Josh Shapiro is in the news on Kamala Harris right now. He's, of course, the governor of Pennsylvania. She took shots at him in her book. She was nasty about him in her book. She wrote how he came to interview for the vice presidential role, that Tim Walz ultimately got. And she paints him as kind of a douchebag, that he was basically measuring the drapes for his vice presidential residence and office upon the interview, to the point where she had to tell him, it's not a co-vice presidency it's not a co-presidency, Josh. And he was told about her book by a reporter who was with him, profiling him for The Atlantic, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And this person wrote about how that went over, where he said, hey, her book just did. Yeah, it was Tim Alberta in The Atlantic. And he said to Josh Shapiro, this is just last week, this is what she said about you. And then he said, did she give you any heads up about her book? Shapiro said, no, she didn't. And then I told him that Harris had taken some shots at him. Shapiro furrowed his brow and crossed his arms. Okay, he said. The man I observed, writes Alberta, over the next several minutes was unrecognizable. Gone was his equilibrium. He moved between outrage and exasperation as I relayed the excerpts. Harris had accused him, in essence, of measuring the drapes, even inquiring about featuring Pennsylvania artists in the vice presidential residence, of insisting, quote, that he would want to be in the room for every decision, end quote, Harris might make, and more generally, of hijacking the conversation when she interviewed him for the job, to the point where she reminded him he would not be co-president. She wrote that in her book, he said in response. That's complete and utter bullshit. I can tell you her accounts are just blatant lies, he writes. Then I asked, says Alberta, whether he felt betrayed. Quote from Shapiro. I mean, she's trying to sell books and cover her ass, Shapiro snapped. The governor stared past me now, shaking his head. As I began to ask a different question, he held up a hand. He looked disgusted. With me? With Harris? No. I began to realize he was disgusted with himself. I shouldn't say cover her ass. I think that's not appropriate. His tone was suddenly collected. She's trying to sell books, period. Well, Shapiro just got asked about that by a reporter on MS Now on Monday. Here's how that went in SOT 18.
Former Vice President Kamala Harris here. It says, she's trying to sell books and cover her ass. Sorry, we're standards. Shapiro snapped, I shouldn't say cover her. Word I shouldn't say on standards. I think that's not appropriate, Shapiro said. His tone was suddenly collected. She's trying to sell books, period. What were you trying to signal in that moment, sir? You want to parse this out for us?
No, there's no parsing. Look, I stand by what I said. I think the way in which the author described my emotion, frankly, was not accurate. But the words are mine, and I stand by them. I think what was relayed to me by that author that the vice president had written about me just simply wasn't true. And, I think the vice president and I had and continue to have very candid conversations. And I think the way in which it was articulated to me, what was said was certainly not accurate.
No one likes her. That's the bottom line, Stu. Pete Buttigieg doesn't like her now. Gavin Newsom was just taking a shot at her. Josh Shapiro basically called her an asshole. She's made more enemies than she had even when she was running, which is not how you become the Democratic primary winner.
No, that's true. And it's, I guess, maybe the strategy, if there is one, and we're assuming there is, but maybe the strategy is to try to paint these people she views as potential opponents in that primary in a negative light, right? Like, hey, they weren't supportive, they didn't help. She keeps doing this to people who, almost definitely are running for president. I mean, Shapiro's going to run, Buttigieg is going to run. I would be really surprised if both of them didn't get in the race. And I think that
Newsom's going to run.
Yeah, I mean, Newsom's as sure a thing as he's been running since I don't know, certainly before 2020. I think he was running for president in a way. He loves himself very much and is very excited about his own leadership. But I think, that might be her tactic here. Again, she's not good at this, though. She's not a good tactician. She doesn't really know how to do any of these things. And she surprisingly, in a moment where she should have created distance during the campaign after Biden steps down, she should have been a little, I mean, it might have helped her to say, look, I tried to communicate over and over again to the president that the border situation, while I love, legal immigrants and illegal immigrants, we want to do the best for them, I don't think that we were handling that appropriately and we needed to do more. And we had a disagreement on that, but he was the president of the United States. There was a path to go there that was not dismissive of the president and highly critical, but was just say, hey, there's a little bit of separation between us. She couldn't even do that.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.